high above the reach of any storm. An island drifts through the endless blue. Crystal waterfalls shatter into mist before they ever hit the ground, and trees shimmer with a clarity that defies the natural world. Butterflies pulse with their own inner light, threading through the legs of giant, nectar-heavy flowers. Tiny dragons carve arcs through the air, their wings beating in rhythm with the cascading water. In the heart of this silence, a bicycle rests on a field of glowing grass. Its wheels are solid crystal, catching the light and refracting it into jagged rainbows across the turf. Suddenly, the stillness snaps. The frame vibrates. A set of wings, folded until now, snaps open with a sharp, metallic sound. Golden dust drifts from the feathers as they catch the updraft. The crystal wheels begin to spin, faster and faster, blurring into a single, translucent circle. The bike lifts, shedding the grass, and ascends toward the clouds. It leaves a trail of sparkling stardust that hangs in the air like a fading memory. The journey has begun, and the bicycle is already pulling toward the horizon, seeking a path that leads far away from the clouds. Rain lashed against the windows of the city, turning the streets into blurred smears of gray. Alex pushed open the door to a shop at the very edge of a forgotten alley. The air inside tasted of damp paper and decades of undisturbed dust. Shelves groaned under the weight of rusted frames and tangled chains, but one object cut through the gloom. A vibrant red bicycle stood apart from the rest. Its wheels hummed with a low, rhythmic pulse of light that seemed to breathe in the darkness. Alex stepped closer, his boots crunching on loose gravel. As he reached out, the bicycle bell chimed once a clear, sharp note that hung in the stagnant air. A man stepped from the shadows behind the counter, his eyes fixed on the bike rather than the boy. He named a price that seemed far too small for such a machine. Alex pulled the coins from his pocket, his focus locked on the glowing frame. The man leaned forward, the wood of the counter creaking under his weight. He gripped Alex's wrist, his touch cold and lingering. "Promise me one thing," the man whispered, his voice barely audible over the rain. "Never ride it after midnight." Alex laughed, a nervous sound that died quickly in the quiet room. He took the handlebars, the metal vibrating against his palms, and turned toward the door. The bedroom was heavy with the silence of the storm outside. Alex propped the bike against the wall, its red frame dull in the dim light. He sat on the edge of his bed, watching the hands of the clock crawl toward the vertical. 12. The bell on the handlebars rang out, sharp and discordant, vibrating through the wooden floorboards. The bike stood upright on its own. A golden luminescence bled from the spokes, washing over the walls and turning the shadows into liquid light. The frame lifted, hovering inches above the carpet. Alex scrambled to his feet, grabbed the grips, and felt the machine surge forward with an impossible pull. It did not roll, it launched. The bicycle slammed through the ceiling, wood and plaster showering away like dust. The cold night air hit him instantly. He was rising, spiraling upward until the city below shrank into a grid of flickering sparks. The clouds parted, tearing open to reveal a path of starlight. He pedaled hard against the wind, his breath hitching as the horizon leveled out. Below him, the world was a map of distant light. Above him, the moon hung low and massive, close enough to graze. He was no longer bound by the gravity of the streets. He was part of the sky. The bridge of light dissolved beneath the tires as the bike touched down on solid ground. Alex stepped off, the grass beneath his boots glowing with a soft, bioluminescent hum. Before him rose towers crafted from translucent crystal, their spires piercing the clouds like needles. Waterfalls cascaded from the floating edges of the island, turning into mist before they could reach the world below. He walked past trees that shimmered like polished diamonds, expecting the hum of life. Instead, the kingdom was deathly still. The vibrant colors of the flowers seemed to dim as he moved deeper into the plaza. Then, he heard it, a rhythmic, jagged sound of someone struggling to breathe. Alex rounded a massive, silver-barked tree and stopped. A fairy sat curled at the base of the trunk. Her face was buried in her hands, and golden tears dripped onto the petals, staining them with a fading light. She looked up, her gaze hollow. "The crystal star is gone," she whispered, her voice cracking like dry glass. "Without it, the sun will never rise again." She pointed toward the horizon, where a dark, jagged peak loomed over the edge of the sky. A map shimmered into existence on the handlebars of the bike, tracing a path toward the shadow. Alex felt the weight of the moment. The beauty of the island was dying, and the silence was no longer peaceful. It was a warning. Alex gripped the handlebars, the map glowing with a faint, pulsing light against the metal. He pushed off, the tires biting into the ethereal soil as he left the Crystal Kingdom behind. The further he traveled, the more the air grew heavy and cold. The sky ahead bruised into a deep, sickly purple, and the horizon vanished into a wall of swirling mist. He pedaled harder, but the ground began to slope upward, turning from soft grass into jagged, unstable shale. Thunder rolled across the sky, not as a distant rumble, but as a sharp crack that vibrated in his chest. Lightning tore through the darkness, illuminating the mountain's silhouette, a hulking, obsidian monolith that seemed to swallow the light around it. The wind picked up, shrieking like a living thing as it funneled through the mountain's narrow passes. Dust and debris whipped against his face, forcing him to squint against the stinging grit. He reached the base of the mountain. A massive, gaping entrance waited in the rock face, exhaling a draft of stale, freezing air. There was no turning back. Alex shifted his weight, felt the bike shudder in the gale, and drove forward into the suffocating gloom of the mountain interior. The interior of the mountain was a tomb of silence. Alex pedaled over floorboards that groaned under the weight of the bike. The air felt thick, tasting of iron and damp stone. He kept his eyes fixed on the dim glow of the handlebars, the only light in the absolute blackness. Suddenly, the path widened into a cavern so vast that the ceiling vanished into the dark. He skidded to a halt. The ground before him shifted. It was not rock, but a living mass of obsidian-hued energy that uncoiled from the cave floor. It rose higher and higher, dwarfing the bicycle and casting a long, jagged silhouette against the cavern walls. 2 points of light, cold and piercing, ignited within the center of the mass. The entity did not speak, but the pressure in the room spiked, forcing the air out of Alex's lungs. It loomed over him, a mountain of shifting shadow that blocked every possible exit. The cavern walls seemed to pulse in time with the creature's heavy, rhythmic breaths. Alex gripped the handlebars until his knuckles turned white. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic rhythm in the stifling stillness. The Guardian stepped closer, its presence radiating a chill that froze the sweat on his brow. He was trapped. The voice boomed, echoing off the cavern walls like falling stone. "Will humans always fear what they do not understand?" Alex looked up into the piercing lights. His pulse slowed. He felt the cold radiating from the shadow, but he did not recoil. Instead, he let go of the handlebars. He slid off the bike, his boots crunching on the loose gravel, and stepped into the freezing dark. He reached out, palm flat, fingers open. "I do not fear you," he said. His voice was steady, cutting through the oppressive silence. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then, the shadow shuddered. The rigid, obsidian mass began to ripple, like smoke caught in a breeze. The jagged edges softened, folding inward until the towering mass dissolved into a figure of light. The ancient guardian stood before him, the hostility replaced by a weary, calm grace. "Kindness is the strongest magic," the guardian murmured, his voice now a low, rhythmic hum. He reached into the shifting air and pulled out a brilliant, pulsing object. He placed the crystal star into Alex's hands. The cavern walls fell away, revealing the path ahead, as the light from the star began to heal the darkness of the mountain. The crystal star pulsed against Alex's palms, its warmth seeping through his skin and chasing away the mountain's lingering chill. He climbed back onto the bicycle, the frame humming in resonance with the artifact. Every rotation of the pedals felt lighter than the last. He raced toward the cavern exit, the light from the star carving a brilliant path through the gloom. As he broke through to the mountain peak, the sky above was still suffocated by the void. Alex raised his hands, releasing the star into the open air. It ascended like a beacon, gathering speed as it pierced the heavy clouds. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath in total silence. Then, the star detonated in a silent wave of pure, golden brilliance. The clouds above the floating island shredded, dissolving into mist as sunlight flooded the realm. Crystal towers caught the rays, refracting them into a blinding spectrum that washed over the landscape. Below, the waterfalls turned to liquid fire, and the flowers ignited with a vibrant, renewed glow. The kingdom erupted in a chorus of color, the darkness purged by the sudden, overwhelming tide of radiance. Alex watched from the peak, shielded by the sheer intensity of the light as the sun reclaimed the horizon. The brilliant glare dimmed, settling into a warm amber glow that bathed the floating island. Alex stood beside his bicycle, his breathing slowing to match the rhythm of the wind. Near the base of the silver tree, the fairy drifted closer, her presence lighter than the air around them. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his palm. A single, golden feather materialized in her grasp. She placed it into his hand, the surface humming with a faint, residual heat. "Whenever someone needs courage, the bicycle will return," she whispered. Her voice carried the resonance of the restored sun. Alex closed his fingers around the feather, feeling its weight a tangible reminder of the path he had walked. He looked toward the horizon, where the floating towers now stood clear against the blue. The kingdom felt alive, a symphony of light and motion that pulsed with renewed strength. He mounted the bicycle, the handlebars vibrating in silent agreement. The fairy stepped back, offering a final, steady gaze that spoke of gratitude beyond words. The connection between them held for one long, quiet moment before the air began to ripple. He turned the front wheel toward the clouds, ready to descend back to the world he knew, carrying the promise of the sky in his palm. The first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, casting long, pale stripes across the floor. Alex blinked, the familiar ceiling of his bedroom coming into focus. The silence of the house felt heavy, a stark contrast to the vibrant hum of the floating kingdom. He sat up, the memory of the sky realm already beginning to fray like smoke. He looked toward the bicycle, but the corner of the room was empty. The space where it had rested remained bare, undisturbed by the morning shadows. He exhaled, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, until his eyes settled on the wooden surface of his desk. There, resting against a stack of books, lay a single golden feather. It caught the early sunlight, its edges glowing with a faint, residual warmth. He reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate, shimmering barbs. The texture was solid, unmistakable. He stood, moving toward the window to push the glass open, letting the cool morning air rush into the room. He leaned out, scanning the quiet street below. Then, it came. A clear, melodic chime echoed from somewhere beyond the rooftops. It was the sound of a bicycle bell, distinct and rhythmic. Alex smiled, the weight of the feather in his hand grounding him. The journey had not ended. It had simply found a new rhythm.
Quiz time. Quiz ready? Question 1. What did Alex buy from the old shop? Alex அந்த பழைய கடையிலேருந்து என்ன வாங்கினான்? A car, a bicycle, a skateboard. என்ன வாங்கினா? A bicycle. Question 2. What did the old shopkeeper tell Alex? அந்த வயசான கடைக்காரர் அலெக்ஸ் கிட்ட என்ன சொன்னாரு? Ride it every day, never ride it after midnight, sell it to your friend. என்ன சொன்னாரு? Never ride it after midnight. Question 3. Where did the flying bicycle take Alex? அந்த பறக்கும் பைசைக்கிள் அலெக்ஸ் எங்க கொண்டு போச்சு? Desert, a kingdom above the clouds, a jungle எங்க கொண்டு போச்சு? A kingdom above the clouds. Question 4. What was missing in the fairies kingdom? Fairy kingdomல என்ன மிஸ் ஆச்சு? A golden crown, a crystal star, a magic sword. Correct answer is a crystal star. Question 5. Who was guarding the crystal star? The crystal star யார் பாதுகாக்கிறது? Option A, a giant bird. B, a shadow guardian. C, a wizard. The correct answer is a shadow guardian. ஸோ இப்போ ஒக்காபுலரி பார்க்கலாம், நியூ வேர்ட்ஸ் கற்றுக்கலாம். எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் ஆராய், சுற்றிப்பார். மிஸ்டீரியஸ் மர்மமான. மிட் நைட் நள்ளிரவு. ஃப்ளோட் மிதத்தல். கிங்டம் ராஜ்யம். ஃபேரி தேவதை. கிறிஸ்டல் படிகம். கார்டியன் பாதுகாவலர். ஷேடோ நிழல். கரேஜ் தைரியம். கைண்ட்னஸ் கருணை. அட்வென்ச்சர் சாகசம். மேஜிக்கல் மந்திரமான. ஸ்பார்க்கிள் மின்னுதல். விஸ்பர் மெதுவாக பேசுதல். ஒருத்தரோட காதில் போய் புதுசுன்னு பேசுவோம் இல்லையா, அதுதான் விஸ்பர். ப்ராமிஸ் வாக்குறுதி. க்ளோயிங் ஒளிரும். ஃபெதர் இறகு. சன்ரைஸ் சூரிய உதயம். உங்களுக்கும் இந்த மாதிரி ஃப்ளையிங் பைசைக்கிள் கிடைச்சா என்ன பண்ணுவீங்கன்னு கமெண்ட் பண்ணுங்கள். உங்களுக்கு இந்த வீடியோ ரொம்பவே யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருந்திருக்கும்னு நம்புகிறேன். இதே மாதிரி ஸ்டோரி மூலமா இங்கிலீஷ் இம்ப்ரூவ் பண்ண நம்ம சேனல் சூர்யா சக்ஸஸ் இங்கிலீஷை சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்கள். பாய், டேக் கேர். தேங்க்யூ ஃபார் வாட்சிங்.